Welcome back to another video, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a quick little reaction recap of the Everton match. Interesting match all around. We got plenty to dive into, but just as a quick scheduling note, we're going to do the video here, more of a reaction to the game, and then once the film is actually released on Spurs Play the entire game, I'm going to dive through that and really pick apart some of the things that we watched today, because there was definitely a lot of things different from the last couple matches that we've seen. So that'll probably be out, I don't know, tomorrow or Tuesday or something like that. But today we're going to dive right into the game between Everton and Tottenham, a rainy old day in Merseyside. And let's look at what we got going on. So trying out a slightly different format. I've got my notes that I usually take here, and we're going to kind of glide through these and bounce back and forth between these and other pages. So first thing I want to start out with, biggest story by far between the game, or of the game, is the changes that Thomas Frank made between the previous couple matches we've seen and kind of the standard format, or standard formation that he likes to play, and this one that we saw today here, which was definitely different. Something that I don't even know if I've seen really other managers play at all. So what we ended up seeing here, let's see if it even has it on SofaScore before we hop into our Twitter screenshots. Not really. So it has Kolomouani playing at striker, Kudus to the middle, Xavi left wing, Bren right wing, which was kind of, I guess, if you wanted to put it like that, but really what it was this this formation here where we have Kolomouani, this is in possession, right? We have Kolomouani up top, Spence at left wing, Brennan at right wing, and then you had Kudus and Xavi kind of playing like dual number 10s, with Kudus in this right half space, Xavi in this left half space, which he's more natural to, obviously. Then you had Bentancur and Paulinho in the two double pivot roles that we've seen them play. And then we had Van de Ven kind of out wide here, Danso through the middle, and Pedro Porro out right. And I guess one thing that we should touch on real quick before we actually dive into this a little bit more is that personnel-wise, it was really good to see Kolomouani get the start. He only played about 60 minutes or so, but had some really good moments, and I was really happy to see him play. And then more or less, it was kind of the same players that we were thinking were going to be playing. I actually did think that he was going to start Archie Gray after the little cameo he had in the Champions League, but ended up going with Bentancur and Paulinho double pivot, which, you know, obviously he's gone with a million times at this point. So that's what we ended up seeing in possession. And then out of possession, we ended up seeing kind of, 3-5-2 shape at times. We would see some kind of 4-4-2 type stuff at times, definitely with Kudus and Kolomouani pressing highest up at times. And it was really interesting that he ended up going with that, because I think it did a couple things. If we head back here, a couple things that I thought really played well into our hands, and that was getting Kudus into this half space here, which he just thrives in. That's something that he's played a lot between playing right wing and playing actually centrally at times across his career. Xavi obviously there. Jed Spence, he actually can play up here on these wings and track back and forth. He has some winger abilities in him. He's not, just a standard fullback, so we all know that, right? And then Brennan Johnson, I would say, is more, if you're going to start Brennan Johnson in this formation, then yeah, you definitely want him to be out wide right. And we'll touch on him in a little bit. But then Kolomouani up top, great. Bentancur, Paulinho providing this kind of shield of the back line and kind of just keeping possession in this area. And then Van de Ven out wide left, which he's played plenty of between playing actually the left of a 3 at Wolfsburg. I believe he played that, but then he plays a lot of left back when he goes and plays with his national team. And then Danso and Porro, obviously. Porro has played a lot of this position over the last couple of years, whether it was kind of more of an inverted, tucked up fullback, closer to where Paulinho would be playing under Ange. But then obviously with his passing range, he can sit back and play out here. So overall, kind of it fit a lot of the players into a position where I think we're going to get a better performance out of them. And what we ended up seeing is, I think that, and we also ended up seeing a lot of confusion from Everton's side. It really seemed to trouble Everton at times, especially early on when they were still trying to figure out what the heck was going on, because I don't know if anybody outside of Thomas Frank and the coaching staff was going to picture this being the formation and this being the way that they were going to play. So we did see that trouble Everton quite a bit early on. And what that ended up seeing us was 70% possession in the first 15 minutes or so. And once Everton actually did kind of start to figure it out, then, some things started to change a little bit. But a good start to the game and a good way to kind of mix things up. Overall, I'm really happy for Thomas Frank to start to mix things up and do things a little bit differently. And actually, based on that, we're going to look at this a little bit later too. But as you can see here with our passing network, so we have this being the passing network, which just looks a lot more fluid, right? You have Javi tucking in here, Kolo Muani coming down here, Kudus going here, but you have passes going to each one of these players. And for reference, if I can find this quickly, we have, I'm just going through all my tweets now, so there might be some stuff that's definitely not relevant. Yes, so here's the game against Monaco. Or no, this is the game against Aston Villa. So you see this giant space here, Xavi not getting on the ball at all. I know, I'm sorry, it's cutting off the bottom of the screen. I can't change that. But you have Van de Ven, and everyone's kind of still pushing out in these wide channels and not really playing through the middle nearly as much as we just saw. Oops, I clicked on it again. Nearly as much as we just saw in this one, where you have a lot more fluidity of passing and moving. And I think that was another thing that this brought was some good rotations. We weren't seeing a ton of rotations left to right necessarily, but we were seeing some little triangles and rotations between players. And it was definitely weighted way heavier to the right side, especially early on, first 20 or so minutes. We were pushing a lot of bodies over to the right side. And even when we turn it over, we would tend to kind of funnel and try to trap players on that side a lot as well. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit later too. So that was kind of how we set up, how we played. Obviously we ended up getting the 3-0 win and played for the most part that kind of formation for most of the game. So if we head back over to our notes and then we go over to, I think that's kind of all I want to cover really quick on the formation, because obviously when we do the film watch, we're going to pull out some other things as well. But let's go into that first goal, because I have that queued up here on our tactics board. Or actually, one thing I wanted to show you before the first goal. This is why I really liked having I mean, one of many reasons, but this is why I really liked having Kolo Muani on, is because I believe this is the right. Yes, I don't know why I have this one before. I guess I'm just showing the way that we're transitioning. But so you have Kolo Muani here, Xavi here, ball's in the air, right? And then we finally get on the ball. Kudus has it. And this is what having Kolo Muani is so good for, because he gets the ball in this little space here. You have Kudus driving, plays it off to him. You have Xavi, who I think headed it down and headed it back to Kudus. So he's coming back into the play. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Everton bodies, and just these 3 Tottenham players in the play essentially. But really clever ball. Kudus plays it, bounces off Kolo Muani into Xavi Simons. So Xavi Simons is in space here, and I guess good for Everton for being in the position to defend this with so many men, because what ends up happening is Xavi essentially gets bodied off the ball. But what could have happened in this situation, and this is why you love to see these little combinations being played, and Kolo Muani is really our only striker that can do that at the moment. Sometimes we've seen Dom Solanke play that, but Kolo Muani is definitely more comfortable doing that kind of thing. But you have Brennan making this run here, potentially heading towards the far post, right? You have Kolo Muani, if he's able to kind of shrug off this challenge from Jake O'Brien and play a quick pass and turn, he potentially could be running in here. And now you have Xavi, who can really play the ball either way or take the shot at goal. And so, obviously that doesn't end up happening. He gets bodied off the ball. Xavi obviously not being the strongest player, but gives you so many options, and it really makes it to where we're not just, doing the same thing, cycling around, passing it side to side. The combination play is something that we really love to see. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show. Actually, I don't have any screenshots of the first goal, but more or less, this is the second goal that came at the 45+6. And and basically a carbon copy of the first goal just from the other side. So Kudus plays it in, plays a beautiful ball into the far post, like really close to goal as it comes in. And same thing here, Pedro Porro plays it in almost, I have in my notes, almost an Olympico, because it could have been like if Mickey wasn't there, almost he could have ducked and it might have gone in. But this is what I want to point out on this one. You have these 4 Spurs players here, or sorry, 4 if you count João Palhinha, all at the back post. So Pedro Porro still hasn't played it right yet, but all these Everton players are still trying to figure out who they're going to be marking. So I think this is what makes it so difficult, and I think that's why we were able to score 2 off of it today, is because then just a second later, as Pedro Porro is playing it in, you now have these 4 players in the box. So now you have João Palhinha used to be right here. He's all the way over here now. You got Binta right here. You got Colomwani, who actually comes from this position to go all the way over to here. And now you have Mickey Van de Ven, who ends up scoring the goal, bodying up Jordan Pickford. And Pickford basically, from the time that the ball is played in to the time that it's actually at him, has just a split second to try to figure it out. It's on top of him. So essentially now it's just a one-on-one. Can Mickey jump higher and get to the ball? And obviously he does. He heads it down for the goal. And so that's what I really wanted to point out about this one, is because I think by crowding everybody at the back post, and this isn't the first game we've seen that, but this is the first game that we've seen it actually executed to perfection. And we saw it twice as well, where I think that was really causing a lot of chaos. And it's just really refreshing to see us doing so many things differently and tactically making tweaks and just making adjustments overall, because you could clearly see, or I should say, during their film during the week, they must have seen something. And so now you're putting yourself in the most opportune position by, setting yourself up in one way instead of just going and trying to do the same zonal marking, whatever, and kind of just trying to get to the ball. They had an intention here, and that was really good to see. So that's the 2 goals basically, and this one ends up being both of those in the first half, both coming off headers. And to step back just 1 second, because both of them are scored by Mickey Van de Ven, and I think we just need to talk about Mickey Van de Ven for 2 seconds, because oh my God, dude! Ever since I almost called him Vicario, Romero went out with his injury. Mickey Van de Ven's captained the side a few times now, captained the side a couple times in the Champions League, and I think this was his first time captaining the side in the Premier League, or maybe he probably did. Anyways, he's just developed so much as a leader and as an actual presence in the squad, where we always knew that his presence defensively, running, tracking back, gathering the ball, making those slide tackles and all that kind of stuff, he's always made a big impact that way. But I don't know if it actually is the captaincy or it's placebo in some ways, but he has just taken on a really big role for the team, and now he is kind of that imposing player that really it makes me worried in some ways, because he's putting himself on a level now that very few center backs can reach, and it it scares me a little bit that maybe in the summer we're not going to be able to hold on to him. But for now, we're seeing one of the best center backs performances in the league for sure, and probably in the world. So awesome to see him in a Spurs shirt and doing so much across the pitch, right? Okay, so the last thing I want to go over is, well, not the last thing, but goals wise. So those are the first 2. We get the third in the 89th minute. Basically everything between that was much of the same. It started really pissing down rain, and so that and the fact that Everton really wasn't doing much, we weren't really doing much to stop Everton from having possession, because if you see here, first half we have 58% possession, and we were really dominating the game, at least as far as one team versus the other. Not necessarily a dominating performance, but we had the best of Everton for sure, even though we weren't creating a ton open play-wise or anything like that. But the second half, you can see how much this shifts. So 66% possession in the second half for Everton compared to our 34, and 1.29 expected goals, 9 shots, 2 on target. Everton was doing so much more, but it seemed like we were actually kind of just letting them have it because they weren't actually creating too much. I know it says 1.2 XG in that. I'd be curious to see what their total is. Yeah, so 1.53, so not a ton created overall, most of it created in that second half. But with that, Vicario did have to make a couple really good saves to keep us from conceding. 8.4 performance again. How many saves? He made 2, so it must have been just those 2 saves, facing 0.96 XG. But yeah, kind of that whole middle period of the game, not much going on for Everton. They kind of just were controlling, pushing it up, had a few good opportunities, but we weren't really in any real danger for most of that second half. And so what that ends up being is we finish out the second half with one more goal, that being a beautiful ball played in here. We have Pedro Porro on it. One of his trademarked crosses coming in. He's going to meet Richarlison, who plays a really good ball. Like, they praised it in commentary, and like, well done, because he's here. He could try to maybe head it past Jordan Pickford near post, but at the same time, maybe the angle's not on, so he does a smart thing and just heads it back into this area, which Sarr comes on and just heads it in past Jordan Pickford for the third goal. And what was interesting about this Sarr goal is that really good to see him score the goal for one. Really good to see him get minutes. He didn't celebrate at all, and the speculation is, and this is obviously just dumb Twitter speculation. This doesn't really mean anything in the real world, but it does seem like he was kind of he still is a little bit bothered potentially about not playing so many minutes, and so maybe that's why we don't see him celebrate, is because he definitely should be playing more minutes up to this point. Thomas Frank made the comment a couple days ago in the press conference when asked about this. And he basically said, he started off really well, but we wanted to rest him before he, kind of fell out of form. And, there's so many other midfielders that were playing, well. And so it's kind of hard to just fit him in. And I don't know if I agree with either of those points, that, the one, pulling him out before he actually gets out of form, that seems weird. I think he also made the point of trying to rest him before he gets injured. I don't know about that. Secondly, the idea that a lot of there's other midfielders that were playing much better than him. Objectively, if I look at that and say, yes, Bergvall did have a run of games where he played really well. João Palhinha, he wouldn't be a like-for-like swap anyways, and he's had a run of games. Xavi's the one that you could say he really hasn't played up to as well as other midfielders, but you probably want to try to integrate Xavi, and so you can see him not wanting to pull Xavi and play Pop instead. And then Bentancur, where it's he really hasn't had that. So he would be the one for me for sure. But then again, Thomas Frank seems like he really trusts Bentancur. He does bring some things to the squad. And in all fairness, Bentancur did have a pretty solid game today. And so, got an 8.1, had the assist. And, he did have a solid game, to be fair. So, I don't know. That's kind of my feelings on Sarr here, is that it was good to see him score, but he definitely should be getting more minutes. Okay, finishing it out. So, formation talk, look at Twitter screenshots, did that. Talk about Mickey's incredible day, did that. Vicario, another great performance, did that. Brennan. So I do want to talk about Brennan because they give Brennan a 7.3, which is hilarious because if you look at his actual stats and watching the game as well, really no contribution at all. 1 out of 3 accurate crosses, couple tackles, couple accurate passes, not great percentage. No real XG or XA contributed. Just really did not do much. And so this isn't a moment where I'm trying to pick on Brennan at all. But if you look across the pitch, everybody performed in some way or another. And really, even if they didn't perform super well, I would say Kudus didn't have his best game today. He wasn't super involved, but he was at least bringing the things that you would want Kudus to do. Whereas Brennan, I just don't know, didn't really bring much. And so, in future, do we see that being Wilson and Xavi swapping? Maybe I don't know. That's where I'm thinking about, like, the one thing I could say is that Kolomwani is comfortable playing out wide right. So maybe you see Richie play up top and Kolomwani out here. I don't know, that right wing position, when you remove Kudus from the equation and bring him more centrally, which I don't think hurt us necessarily. But yeah, Brennan really wasn't the answer out there. Okay, finishing it out, talked about Sarr. Bentancur had a great game. Look over the player ratings. We kind of did that already, but Vicario again, great game. Pedro Porro, really solid game. Jed Spence wasn't really involved all that much, but did he ever get dribbled past? 2 times dribbled past. I wouldn't say that he was a real factor in Everton getting away with anything really. So obviously he was matched up against. To be fair, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, he was matched up against Njai most of the game, and Njai did have a couple really nice moments of dribbling and footwork and getting around players, but there weren't really that many opportunities where he was after, dribbling past a player in on goal and really dangerous. So overall, a decent day by Spence overall, right? Xavi Simons, he obviously plays the 60 minutes and then comes out. Had some really good moments, and it looked like he was starting to kind of come into the game by the time that we substituted him. And as we looked at with that one screenshot sequence, playing some good combinations, he had a really good turn early on where he was bodied by a man, but grabs it, makes a good turn, dribbles forward, and starts the break. He also has a couple times. How many times was he dispossessed? Just the one time. A couple times where he was in good attacking positions and didn't really make much out of it. So I think, obviously the game a couple games back, there was a Brighton match where he came on in the second half, and there was another game more recently where he had a pretty good performance in the number 10. I think he's still trying to figure it out. In all honesty, I think the Premier League has shown to be a little bit much for him, pace of play wise, but mostly the strength of play has been an issue. So, still kind of working his way in. Everyone else really did have a pretty solid game. Even Kolomwani had those couple moments where he looked really sharp and looked like he could bring something a lot different to the squad as well. And then Danso, another solid match. I mean, he really has not put a foot wrong. I'd be really curious to see what ratings he's had. So obviously we're going to have a couple Austria matches in here, but Everton 8.0, 6.9 against Monaco, 6.5 against Villa. We were pretty bad that day though. Bodo Glimt 6.4, Doncaster 7.8. I mean, maybe that's not showing what I was hoping to see, because really what I was trying to say about Danso is that he really does not bring me any worry when he's in the game substituting for either Van de Ven or Romero. I'm really comfortable when Danso is playing, and that's been a really good signing for us. Okay, so last thing we're going to do before we close this one out, like I said, we're going to have a more in-depth film analysis tomorrow or the next day. So let's just scroll through some of these tweets and see if anything else comes up before I forget. 19% of the goals this season in the Premier League have come from corners. That is actually not great. Some pop tweets. Nice little reaction here from Gussie. Yeah, a lot of Bryn ran at his fullback. He did have that one moment where he ran at the fullback, ended up creating the chance for that second corner, I believe, where he actually goes wide, cuts inside, and ends up playing the ball off of the defender to get the corner. So not bad. Kudu's playing some number 10. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all for this one from the Twitter sphere as well. So that's it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Really good game, really good performance overall. I did want to kind of touch about this, and I think this is something that I'll dive into in another video, because it's, I could talk about this for a long time, is that the reaction I have seen, the only really negative reaction I have seen is that style of play wise, even though we did make those changes formationally, and we did have some bright moments, there was still a lot of dullness and a lot of not good football. Now, it could be the weather, could be that was the first time we were playing this, and Everton, once they figured it out, we didn't really have a counter. And so, you go back and look at the film and you figure out what to do next. Could be some factors in there. But I did see a broader argument or discussion, I should say, between Harry Brooks and Jack Pitbrook, talking about how kind of this is the style of play that people are going for nowadays, kind of that Arteta ball, and we're kind of Arteta ball light in this one to some degree, where it's not really even about how you play. How you play is far secondary to actually getting the result. And that's something I want to talk about at some point and do a little bit of a dive and have some discussions about what's more important in today's football. We can clearly see from a manager's perspective, that's getting the wins and getting the results. From a fan's perspective, should we care about the type of football that the team is playing if we're getting results? I guess maybe some of that is personal, what you care about. Do you care about watching good football more, or do you care about winning more? Is it more about the days after the games are played that you get to talk about, banter with your friends and everything, talk about your team being high up on the table and what could be, because obviously we've seen in years past, even if you're playing good football at times, you could still be losing. I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. Not one for right now because this video has gone long enough already, but something I do want to talk about at some point. So anyways, glad to see the team win. We've got a tough one at Newcastle in the midweek in the EFL Cup, and then we have another tough one this weekend against, I don't remember. I should probably look that up real quick. I wanted to say it was Chelsea, but I don't think it is Chelsea. It is Chelsea. So Saturday kickoff, 11:30 my time against Chelsea. So tough one. If you watched the last video, we looked at the screenshot of the run of fixtures we have going, and it's a tough old run of fixtures. So anyways, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.